In a world where carbs are your enemy, you need one man to help you fight your battles. That man is Jimmy.
Combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we're back here with another episode of Jimmy Rants. If you're brand new to Jimmy Rants, go to JimmyRants.com, and what we do is we start off on Instagram, do a couple live videos every day, except today. If you're watching today, you're going to get a million videos, because I'm live at the Metabolic Health Summit. There's a fan of the Metabolic Health Summit here, and so we're going to be doing a lot of videos. So go follow me on Instagram. If you're watching this on the replay, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can watch it that way. You can also access the Jimmy Rants podcast on Apple Podcast and Stitcher. But I want to get right to today's show. Today's Jimmy Rants is all about brain health on keto. And a lot of people, you might read in the media that keto is not so good for brain health because you need 130 grams of carbohydrate in your diet to make the brain work properly. But I have me an expert here. She is from #Keto Experiments. She's doing lots of great experiments on keto and brain health and mood. Her name is Erin Bellamy. You see her username down there, Erin Louise Bellamy. What's up, Erin?
Morning, guys. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all.
She says morning, but she's from the UK.
So I'm really
tired. What time
tired.
is it now? It's like night. It's time to go to bed almost.
Yeah. It's like 4 p.m. in the day, and I'm exhausted. But you got to be here. You got to show up. That's how it goes.
But she's here at this MHS 2019 because she has a paper all about the effects of keto on brain health and mood stabilization. So why don't you talk about a little bit about why the mainstream thinks we need this whole 130 grams of carbohydrate and why that's bogus?
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's a really good question. We have these two fuel sources. We can run our body on fat, we can run our body on ketones, or we can run our body on glucose and sugar. And so for so long, people have been saying, you need to have 120 grams of sugar. Your brain needs sugar in order to run. If you don't have it, you're going to feel awful. But that's not the truth, right? We know when we follow a ketogenic diet or a low carb diet, we can move over to burning fat for fuel and using those ketones, and actually we feel much better in the long run. It's usually, people find trouble within the first couple of weeks as they move over and they lower their carbohydrates down. They find they get fatigued, tired, a little bit low mood because maybe they're doing many things at once. They're hitting the intermittent fasting, they're dropping their carbs down really low, and so
they're
all
not
of these
replenishing
things,
electrolytes.
They're not replenishing electrolytes.
Right.
They're probably not resting as much as they can because their body is kind of in between these two fuel sources. So this period can last for about 2 weeks, and people get really overwhelmed by how they feel. They're not maybe following a well-formulated ketogenic diet and getting in all the good nutrients and things like this that they need. And so lots of people drop out in that stage. They don't feel great, they feel low, and they put, you're going to blame the thing that you've changed most recently. You're going to blame the keto, you're going to blame the low carb. When in actual fact, it's completely different in the long-term thing. So over time, you'll find that once you replenish your electrolytes, once you become fat adapted, once your body gets used to burning ketones and fat rather than glucose, your well-being seems to level out. You don't hit this energy wall. You don't have these mood fluctuations, with your glucose hitting a high and then your glucose hitting a low every time you eat something. Everything seems to stabilize. And I do a lot of coaching with people on ketogenic diets, and I've worked a lot with people within the mental health sphere and inpatient units. And what we find is when you move people over to a low carb or a ketogenic diet, as soon as they start to get the ketones up nice and high, the mood stabilizes and levels out.
Can I talk about the role that low-fat diets have played in this whole mental health game? Because nobody's ever talking about, I went on Paxil or I went on Zoloft as a direct result of being on a low-fat diet. But we know the brain thrives in a higher fat state. So can you articulate why fats matter for your mood?
Yeah, absolutely. So fats are extremely important for so many things within our body. So hormone production, as well as regulating out the mood. The body needs fats in order to level our emotions, level our hormones.
Yep.
When we're following a low-fat diet and we're mainly focusing on carbohydrates, things like this, we're not getting any benefits. We're not getting any micronutrients from those fats and those proteins because it's mainly sugars and carbs. It's not giving us any decent nutrition. It's only giving us energy.
What role does the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K play in this?
Mm-hmm. So fat-soluble vitamins are extremely important. You have to get those in throughout the day in order for your body to function. If you're not getting them, from a well-formulated ketogenic diet, lots of your brain mechanisms can't work as well.
Is that when you get hangry?
Yeah, absolutely. You get your low mood.
Yeah.
You get frustrated. You get irritated. You'll shout at your partner. You'll shout at your family. And you need to level it all out. And the only way you can really do that is by getting a good amount of fats and a good amount of protein in your diet, which is what our bodies have always been meant to run on.
So my wife Christine took Paxil for 10 years, thinking that she had mental health stuff going on. And what it was she had a very low vitamin D level as a direct result of eating a low-fat diet because she wasn't getting that fat-soluble vitamin into her brain. And so I wonder how many people right now are taking mood disorder type of medications, psychotic medications, that if they just simply gave them more fat in the context of a carbohydrate-restricted diet, that they wouldn't need those so-called necessary pills anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these days people are on these medications.
She keeps backing away from me. I'm going to pull her closer.
These days people are on these medications. Everybody is on some sort of medication, it seems. And
not me
not
anymore.
good job. It's not necessary for many people. The doses are too high.
Right.
Perhaps they can be lowered. It seems to be that the first place for people to go is to be prescribed some sort of mental health medication. But actually they have so many interactions. I spoke with somebody yesterday who their prolactin levels were very high. And I asked them, well, are you on any mental health medication? And they said yes. And I said, oh, well, you might want to have a look at that. There are so many side effects from these medications when really, if you were to lower the dose, work with a physician and try and lower the dose, but to bring in and focus more so on making sure you get the right foods in, the right fats to kind of settle your body, you're going to find that you're probably going to do a little bit better.
Well, and this is the problem with the way we treat this kind of thing now. People go see a clinical psychologist and they put them on one of these drugs. And most of these medical doctors have not at all been trained in any kind of nutrition. And so why would we think they would default to the nutrition? So what do patients who deal with these kinds of issues, what are their options other than doing it on their own? You don't want them to willy-nilly just change things on their own. What can they do? Are there functional medicine doctors that they can go see? Who do they go see to get the good stuff with nutrition?
That's really difficult. I mean, I'm based in the UK and we don't even have as much as you would over here. We have very few functional medicine practitioners. And I suppose that's where my research comes in. I'm looking to bring people into an online intervention where they can follow a low-carb diet or a ketogenic diet and monitor their mood over time so that I can then show at the end, if the ketogenic diet and the low-carb diet really impacts mood and improves it over a long period of time. So really these days it's in its early stages. These antipsychotic medications and mental health medications, so many of them encourage the body to crave energy, and people always then turn for more carbohydrates, more sugar. Most people end up gaining weight on these medications over time, and so an intervention right now is extremely important and it's needed. But in the UK, we have the NHS. They're quite reluctant to bring on board.
They're about as bad as the FDA is here.
They're quite reluctant to bring in anything. But there are people over there that are really pushing to bring in this real food
Asim
approach.
Malhotra is doing a great job.
Asim Malhotra is just firing ahead. He's a
Harcum.
cardiologist in the UK, and he's really pushing to kind of overcome this whole idea that we have to follow a low-fat diet. The other one that we need to speak about is diabetes.co.uk.
Okay. Okay.
So it's different to diabetes.org.
Yes.
They are a separate...
They're keto-friendly.
Keto-friendly, separate company. So I'm working quite closely with them for my PhD work. And they offer a 12-week low-carb program online. And they are going to be bringing out a ketogenic program online. So you can do it from anywhere in the world. And you can get the results. You can speak with people on their forum. You can, get involved in the community and really push ahead to try and take responsibility for your health and to really get the benefits of following a low-carb approach or keto from afar. So it's really exciting.
So Erin, one of the theories that I've put out there over the past couple of years with all the increased in like school shootings here in America and just crazed gunmen and that kind of thing shooting into crowds, the Las Vegas incident, all kind of incident, and you guys have had some over where you are. I always theorize, I wonder if they're eating low fat. And I wonder if they're on some antipsychotic medication that had they just been given proper nutrition advice, would have never gotten to that point where they would want to do that. Is there any veracity, you think, to that theory?
I think obviously there needs to be some research done on it, and there are a lot of confounding factors, but there are things that come up time and time again when you look into these situations. So usually people would mention, there is some mental health issues in the background. Perhaps they're on some other sorts of medications that have side effects, or there have been some mental health issues underlying over time. I think that comes down to making sure that we just overhaul our lifestyle in general. We all know that this low-fat diet doesn't work, and it leaves us low in so many vitamins, minerals, and micronutrients, and it does so many bad things for our health. And we can see the opposite occur when you follow something a little bit more natural, a low-carb. It doesn't have to be low-carb or keto, but more of a real food approach, and you get those benefits. You get the mood stabilization, you get the energy stabilization. There are some old studies, because the research is so new, right? Some of the old studies from way back in the 1960s, where people who had episodes of psychosis and things like schizophrenia, when you took the gluten and you took the casein from the milk out of their diets, they had a complete resolution of all of their hallucinations and all of their symptoms of schizophrenia. And in one case, actually, there was a lady who was 77 years old, and she had had schizophrenia since she was 16. And as soon as she had been put on a low carbohydrate diet and a ketogenic diet, all of her auditory and visual hallucinations disappeared.
Wow.
And only when she then re-implemented back in or had some cheat days did the hallucinations come back.
Yeah.
So I think, though that research is quite old and we're trying to replicate it again now, I think that really shows just how much of an impact these carbohydrates and these sugars can have on your brain and can have on how you process your day-to-day actions.
And most of the medical professionals and even the researchers in this space that you're talking about, this is totally off their radar screen, which is kind of shocking to me. I know when I've talked to a lot of the general health people, and I talk about the epilepsy research. Oh, well, that's very old research. It's only for kids, blah, blah, blah. And they're never seeing the application that could be in so many other areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the mental health research has got a little bit lost, because it was the 1960s, 1970s. There were a couple of people doing experiments with mental health, but then as soon as their research came out, so did the nutritional guidelines in 1977 and 1982. So it kind of it came out around the same time. So people moved and focused more on the low fat and not so much on the on even the epilepsy, treating epilepsy with keto and treating mental health with a ketogenic diet. So we have quite a long way to go. There are very few people in this field. There's only Dr. Georgia Eade, Dr. Ann Childers, and maybe one or two other people who may have taken part in some research around mental health and keto. But the rest of it is anecdotal. Like you guys out there, you probably know somebody who's improved their depression or improved some of their other like anxieties and things with keto, but they're not part of the study, right? So I'm taking all that anecdotal evidence, making that be the fire behind my research, and trying to get something tangible and decent out there, so then we can back up and say, listen, keto works to improve your mood, to settle your mood. And actually, in terms of ketone levels, blood ketone levels, I'm finding that in and around the 3 millimolar mark, not for everyone, but for many people, in and around 3.5 millimolar in ketones, that seems to be a sweet spot for many people in terms of leveling out mood.
Does that go along with kind of the glucose to ketone index? So naturally, if you get blood ketones that high, your glucose is going to be in a lower level, that it gets in that sweet spot for the GKI?
I think that might play a part, but as you know, the GKI is still quite new, and it's still quite.
Dr. Seafried, who is here at this conference,
yes, I am looking forward to chatting to him, and it's all still kind of round up in cancer and applications of cancer only. I think it's something that we need to have a proper look at, but I think you have a point. The higher ketones, the more regulated and lower blood sugar, and then the stability of both over time.
Yes.
And you're not spiking it with, insulin or glucose spiking foods. You just have that stability. And I think if you can keep it there, that's where people seem to find that they feel good. They feel more in control of their food. And I have some people, like you mentioned earlier, about like binging and addiction.
Yeah.
And they seem to just be more in control and be more level and stable, and therefore more able to make good decisions about, things going on in their life. So it's an interesting place to be right now because it's also new. But it's exciting.
So, Erin, what got you interested in this field to want to go get a PhD in it? Because, like you said, there was kind of a void in the market. I'm assuming that was one of your motivations. Why aren't other people talking about this? But what made you do this? Where are you in your studies? When do you become a doctor?
Not soon enough.
Not soon enough.
Yeah, not soon enough.
That's an honest answer.
I've been working so hard. Well, okay, so my story is quite simple. My background is in psychology. I did my undergrad and master's in psychology. I wanted to be, I thought I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. But then at the same time, as I think everybody with keto, you have your own personal journey. So, I used to be 70 pounds heavier than I am now. I was just researching around for the next thing. I came across keto, and being the big research head that I am, I decided, okay, what else does this keto
Translation, nerd.
Yeah.
But we love our nerds.
Keto nerd, indeed. I was like, what else does this thing do? This thing seems great. So took a deep dive into the research, decided, okay, what does it do for mental health? I work in mental health. I work with these acutely unwell inpatients, in East London in the UK, where their outcomes their prognosis is really, really poor.
Yeah.
And so I started coming across all of this old research from the 60s and 70s, but nothing since then, like 1 or 2 case study papers. And I was blown away. I just thought to myself, you've all this research coming out about cancer, all this research coming out about diabetes, but nobody is talking about mental health.
Yeah.
Nobody is doing it. And I thought it was just me. So I reached out to Jimmy, I reached out to some of the top researchers, like, am I missing something? Like, can you share with me the research that's been done? And I got links to other people to ask, but nothing came back.
Right.
And so that's when I thought, you know what? I love keto. I've lost a lot of weight with it. I feel great. My mood is settled. What if I was to, combine this with psychology? Like, if I can make people who have schizophrenia or make people who have bipolar or depression, if I can make an impact in their lives and help them to level out in their mood so that they can take less medication over time, or, it's going to help them in some way, then I want to do it. And so that was me. I jumped on this PhD journey in 2016 because it's part-time, I work full-time. So I'm third year now.
Nice.
I'm in the middle of my data collection. So I've got people coming in. I'm recruiting only people from the United Kingdom at the moment, but people, healthy individuals, people with mental health issues, just getting them all on board, putting them on these keto and low carb interventions, as well as controlling. We have a control group as well to really give validation to all of the groups. And so by the end of this year, I'm going to be looking at the results and seeing what the findings are. And then hopefully by mid next year, I'm going to have something tangible. So I wish it was sooner. I wish I could just be done already and I could, tell people the outcomes.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited. Yeah, research takes time, and it's tough, guys.
Yes.
But I'm really excited to be such a big part of this small area because
Yes.
there's just not anybody doing it. And if you guys have stories to tell about your mental health journeys with keto and things like that, I would be really excited to hear what you have to say, because each of these stories adds validation to, you know, to what I'm doing and how we can push this mental health and healthy lifestyle forward. And I think people need to kind of come out and talk about it, because we all have mental health, you know, we have physical health and mental health. We all have experienced issues with our mental health at one point or another, whether it be really severe or just mild. So we need to talk about it. We need to talk about what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And if keto works, great. If fasting works, fantastic. If low carb works, let's discuss it, you know, and that's where we are. So yeah.
Awesome.
Come on, guys, you got to talk to me.
So if you do have a story, definitely go right to her on Instagram. Down there in the pinned comment, you can see Erin Louise Bellamy. And I know she's sincere in wanting to hear from you. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys have to say? Welcome in, welcome in. I'm going to get her in the background here. Hello, Alberta, Canada. Thanks for being here. Mood stabilization is the #1 reason that I run on ketones, says Fat-Fueled Fitness. See, people are already getting it. They follow me. They definitely get it, because I talk about it quite a bit on my work. All right. Less yo-yo, more even energy.
Exactly.
Oh, my gosh. If you don't have the spikes and the dip story, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
That is a big reason a lot of people go keto. Wow, lots of people here. Thanks for being here, guys. 57 years old, type 2 hypertension, almost had a stroke last August. Doctor told me I was in early stages of dementia. I started keto afterwards for months. I lost 36 pounds. No meds. My thinking and memory has all improved greatly, says Truck RT. That's pretty typical, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so great to hear these stories coming through, and the more we get, the more we can, you know, get other people involved in this, because, you know, 57 and feeling fantastic. People don't want that to happen, right? We want it to happen, but some of the other people not so much.
Yeah, Chrissy Sue says a lot of those people that do the crazy killings and stuff tend to be on psychotropic medications.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah. It's
sad.
It's really sad, and
because nobody in their right mind would ever do those things consciously.
Right. And I think, you know, I don't think it's going to be a top-down movement. I don't think things are going to change from up there. It's more about us getting together and using our lifestyle to kind of keep us away from needing those medications and needing things like that. And then at the same time talking about mental health with each other, and making sure that everyone is supported. If you're having a tough time, you need to talk about it, not just be given medication and willing it away.
Yeah.
Because as we know, the outcome for that is not always great.
Ashton says, my father was type 2 diabetic, macular degeneration, eventually passed away from dementia. I think it was caused by eating so many carby and sugary foods. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of this type 3 diabetes with Alzheimer's, that plays a huge role in this. And I think if people saw a lot of the mental health issues as just another form of insulin resistance, that might bring it home for them.
Yeah.
Because I think people, they look at cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, all these things as different diseases. They're all basically the same disease, right?
Absolutely. I mean, cancer is a huge thing for that, like all these different cancers, and people are trying to find all these different remedies for these different cancers, when actually what we're finding, like through the work of Thomas Seyfried, and so it seems to all have the same underlying mechanisms within the cells. You know, not to go into much detail, we'll leave that to him, but that's where it seems to be coming from. And I think when you look at type 2 diabetes and type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's, you know, up until recently, people were just thinking people were dying from old age. That's what happened when you got old. You just, you know, your memory got poor and you started becoming kind of reverting back to your younger years. Whereas now we know much more. You know, if you can stabilize the food, you can stabilize so many other things, get people active, get people moving, have a good social circle as well, and have good social support, people are doing much better, you know, and even if you're not reversing your Alzheimer's, you're, you know, preventing it from getting much worse.
Yes.
And I think that's huge, you know, if you can put a halt on it and make sure that you don't progress with any of your illnesses, then that's a win. What more could you ask for?
Yeah. Selena says, I started keto 3.5 years ago because I suddenly was having panic attacks. Since going keto, I've never had another attack again.
That's it's incredible.
That's
that's
awesome.
Right. And the research on panic attacks is minimal. So the fact that you're seeing benefits from keto is huge.
Yeah, so Ashton was reminding me there is not a researcher in this, but Carrie Brown talks very openly about her mental health stuff. So
yeah, she's got some great podcasts, or she's been on some great podcasts over the past 6 months.
She was on mine not too long ago.
So yeah, you guys have to check her out if you're interested in that for sure.
Bullock in 2018 says we need a keto diet in the prison system. That would be interesting to do as an N equals however many are in the prison, just to see how it would impact.
Well, I can tell you, I have somebody quite close to me who's also doing a PhD within the forensic system, so people who have committed crimes but then have been found to be mentally unwell at the time. They go to a special unit in the UK, so it's like half hospital, half prison, where they serve their sentence. And on the back of my obsession with keto, they've started to implement, taking out the sugar, getting rid of the fizzy drinks, and he's already seeing some improvements there. I mean, it's a long way off from implementing keto diets in prison systems because it's all wrapped up in government, of course. But, if you work in a prison or you work in a hospital, make those changes. You can make the changes, so see what happens with people and see how they feel.
That's awesome. What about anti-nutrients on the effect on brain health, says Martin Raw Carnivorous?
Right, so I am not well versed in anti-nutrients. I'm just going to be
Stay away from egg whites. They have avidin in them. They're no bueno for your brain.
It's really personal, and I think...
And grains.
And grains, of course, yeah. So the inflammatory things, like, of course,
vegetable
grains,
oils.
Vegetable oils, seed oils, these types of things, you've just got to stay away from. But then there are some things that are more nuanced. Some people get on very well with dairy. Other people have issues with dairy. So really, I always say, once you've been keto for a while, if there's still some things that you need to work on, your energy's not quite there, or you're not feeling 100%, you just got to play around with it, because what works for you might not work for me. I get on fine with dairy. I can't have keto sweet things in my house, or I'll eat them all. That's just how it is. Whereas other people can have keto treats and they can leave them in the fridge and not go near them, right? So everyone is really different. Everybody is at different stages in their journey. So once you are comfortable with your keto diet or whatever you're doing at the time, then start to make some changes and kind of fiddle around, test your ketones, test your glucose, be a little bit of an experiment geek because you want to know what your body is doing, and then see what happens, You might be fine with dairy, you might not. You might be fine with other things, you might not. So you gotta test it out. Or
you might like all meat. What Alberto does right now is all raw meat.
Interesting.
So he's pretty hardcore.
Interesting.
Cicely says my daughter's anxiety and OCD healed going keto as well.
Yeah.
So all these brain health issues, you guys, is pretty amazing.
And the anxiety research right now is still quite sparse. Dr. Dom D'Agostino, he's done some studies with rat and mice models, but obviously it hasn't been translated into humans yet. So lots of anecdotes still coming through.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a good couple of years for the mental health side of things, I hope. So.
Absolutely. So Nomo Margaret wants to know, why would mental health symptoms return after a few weeks of seeing improvement on keto? Other than slipping up, allowing old habits to go back in, are there any things that could maybe cause a relapse?
I think, one, that's more personalized, but two, I think you need to look at the wider sphere. It's not always about diet. So if you've implemented a ketogenic diet and you've seen improvements maybe, and then you're seeing symptoms come back.
Stress.
Yes, stress is a huge one. Sleep is a huge one. You've got to be getting your sleep. How are your relationships with people in your family? How are your relationships with people around you? How is your job? Those things, you cannot underestimate the impact that they have on your mental health.
And other medications that would interact with it as well.
Exactly. And then there are
I know the statin drugs did that to me. It was horrible.
And how the medications can be impacted by certain other supplements that you might take.
The interaction.
You have to be really, really careful with any supplementations that you're taking. Really, I would just say, have a look at your life overall. Keto is not a panacea. Carnivore is not a panacea. It's not going to be a cure-all, but it definitely, it really gives you a good baseline to go from. Why would you take medications for your mental health and then, not look at the other things going on in your life? So start lifestyle first, sort out your sleep, your energy, your food, and then if you're still having issues, then you go and you have a look and you get some extra help, and you go from there.
Well, I can tell you why people love to pop a pill, Erin, and make it all go away, right? I wish they had keto in the public school, says Kimberly.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that would be good.
it's really horrible. My therapist likes keto but wasn't sold on intermittent fasting, says Dwight James Clark. Well, if you got them on keto and you just spontaneously start fasting, I don't think they're going to say that's a bad thing, right?
It's interesting how after a while, when you're on a ketogenic diet, you become naturally more satiated.
Yes.
You know, and you don't feel like you need to eat as much.
I fasted 32 and a half hours yesterday before I had a meal. It's so easy, so simple. I feel like I was going through some mental distress dealing with pre-menopause, hot flashes, anxiety. Keto corrected all of this into non-existent, says Keto Fasting MT. Good job, good job. So, as somebody said, egg whites are bad. Look into my eyes. Yes. Eat the friggin' yolk. Okay. That's good for your brain health too, right?
The yolk is the tastiest bit. So.
Yes, tastiest and healthiest. In fact, when I accidentally drop one of my chicken eggs in my backyard, when the chickens go for it, they fight over the yolk. They could care less about the white. They fight over the yolk. It's pretty amazing. So Stephanie Nicole wants to know, does taking any antibiotics disrupt keto or fasting? I took one last night as directed and woke up hour 58 of my fast feeling terrible. Maybe, but email me that question because it's an interesting one. Would love to bring up on my Keto Talk podcast. So write to me, jimmy@llvlc.com. But we are all out of time here on this Jimmy Rants. Thank you, Erin Bellamy,
Thank you so much, guys. It's been great having
here.
a chat with you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So no website yet?
No website yet. I got to work on it.
She's a researcher, so right now, that's what she's doing. She's researching.
Yeah, but follow me on Instagram.
Yes.
I'll sort out a website over time. It's a bit chaotic, but on the back of the Metabolic Health Summit where we are now, I think I've got to get out there and at least get a blog up and something and get you guys to ask me questions and things so I can help to push this mental health and keto thing a little bit further along.
It's so funny. People come to these conferences and I'm constantly telling them to get out there more. She's going to be out there more. So Erin Louise Bellamy, go follow her down there in the pinned comment. You can see, I think it's a clickable link. You just click on it and you're going to get a bunch of new followers.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys.
JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, we start off on Instagram, so go follow me there at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMEN. You can watch it live. If you missed the live, you can watch the replay, and I got a whole bunch of videos for you guys coming today, so definitely go subscribe. You can also watch them on YouTube, so go watch all the past episodes on YouTube. Finally, we have a Jimmy Rants podcast, which is on Apple Podcasts as well as Stitcher. JimmyRants.com has all of these links all in one place just for you. So until next time, we'll see you then.